this conference came together and what we did. And then I will speak about you. I'll set you up for a minute or so, and then you can take it from there. Sounds
Okay,
good?
great. Yeah, sounds good. And so then I'll just screen share when I need to screen share from my side, yeah? And
yeah,
I can just control just like normal. Okay, great.
Okay, awesome. Let's go.
All right, good luck. Have fun.
Thank you. Camila, you can start the webinar when you're ready.
Okay, starting now. Get ready.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Seems like you have people here joining already. Oh, that's nice, fantastic.
Wow, awesome. There's a lot of people joining in. Well, this is really great.
Hello, everyone.
Seeing all of you guys joining in.
My name. Yeah, like it's currently 2 a.m. here. So you can imagine it's really early. So first of all, I'd like to say welcome to everyone to the conference. Whoa, the numbers just jumped. Friday, have you seen this? A lot of people just jumped, Randy, to see you. Yeah. So welcome everyone. Like to welcome us in conference. Thanks for making the time and joining us. As I said in the beginning, my name is Gijan Mashava, and I'm really excited with this. We've been planning this for some time now. So like, as you may know, the idea is like was getting together like designers from all over the world and trying to like change with this the future of design in Africa. And I believe we kind of in the way to doing that. We went like through a long process, but I will let my teammate Pradyumna to tell you as a bit of about our story, and then we're gonna jump to Randy. So I would like to take this moment to say like thank you everyone for joining us, and don't forget to see other talks. Pradyumna, goes to you now.
Yes. Thank you, Gideon. Yes, it's actually great to see you guys all here. And we've been seeing all of you interact for the past few days. It's been exciting and amazing to see all of this come to life. So we wanted to build this conference because we wanted to create an organization or like a path for making design more inclusive and more friendly in our eyes. So we realized that there is an opportunity for building something where people from all sorts of backgrounds can come together and prove that they have the talent and the passion and the will to be designers and then make a difference through whatever path that they're taken from various backgrounds. Even if they didn't start out as designers, they could end up using their personal experiences, personal learnings, and the environment around them to make a difference and design for the better of the world. We see this predominantly happening in Africa, and we realize that this is an amazing place to showcase and put a spotlight on the talent and the amazing people that are coming out of Africa. When we say design, we don't really hear much about Africa or the emerging markets. So we wanted to do this and like showcase the amount of things that can be done with the passion and the drive of the people from the continent. And to do this, it doesn't mean that we just focus on Africa. We want to bring them to the same stage that we are all discussing at the world stage. I'm sorry about that. So this means we are trying to bring the world and connect them together as a whole group of designers. So we realized because of the pandemic, we were able to go ahead and start planning this and creating this conference completely remotely. And we realized the only barriers that we set up for ourselves is the time zones. So to slightly overcome that, we tried to have a 24-hour conference where everybody can watch it the entire day with all talks coming from speakers from all over the world, from the attendees like you guys listening in from all over the world and learning from each other without any barriers. Right? So I personally got involved in this conference when Gideon spoke to me about his vision about having this world-class designers and how we can change the future of Africa. And I, through this journey, I've ended up meeting a lot of people throughout the world and communicating and learning so much about the different cultures and their backgrounds and what drives people to be better designers. And my team alone, like Maria Karnakova from Russia, I learned amazing things about her culture, her background, and what drives her to be a designer, starting from being a journalist and a service designer, and what she leads right now. And same with Camila Holanda, who is a UX designer from Brazil. And I've grown to learn how she operates and how she thinks and how she sees the world around us and how she's making an impact in her own way. So I see the passion and drive from all the people that are joining us on this journey. And I would like to thank you all for being a part of it and helping us build this conference and take this forward. To know more about what we are doing and how we did all of this and put this conference together, please join us at 10 p.m. EST. You should see the conference schedule, which says How It's Made, the World Class Designer Conference, where we'll speak a lot more about how the process behind and like, let you know about how we worked on this, building this conference remotely. And uh, to take it forward to present to you guys the keynote, we have Randy J. Hunt. He is an entrepreneur. He's co-founded companies like Supermarket and also a record label. He has also founded a design studio in Brooklyn. He is a award-winning designer. He's an author of a book called Product Design for the Web. And he's a designer. Like he has incorporated all of his life experiences to design for Etsy and Grab, which is one of the biggest super apps in all of Southeast Asia. So let's go ahead and learn more from Randy, learn his perspective of what it means to be a designer. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me okay? Audio still good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, hi, everyone. Gosh, it's such a really like a privilege and honor to be here. Really, really excited. So, yeah, thank you all for having me. It's really cool to see what you put together. I'm excited to see it, unfold as we move ahead. Thanks to Gideon for the initial invitation as well. Yeah, so gosh, the smile on my face is very genuine. Just happy to be here. So let's see how this goes. And if we have any internet issues or audio, I'll just like look out in the chat. Someone let me know, and we'll make sure we get it all fixed up. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of my personal perspective on some things, really about design and maybe how big design can be, and also how intimate design is for me. So I'll just give you a little bit of background before I kind of dive in. I think an important part of this is really about sort of crossing cultures and learning across cultures, which I think Bajanga just kind of mentioned in his introduction. When Gideon and I hopped on a call several weeks back, I think he was surprised to see that I'm who I am, because I was calling from Singapore, where I've been living for the last couple of years. And we had a fun conversation about, family names and given names and what names say about where you come from, what clues they might give or not. And it was just a really interesting exchange across cultures. And of course, both of our assumptions were, I think, challenged a little bit. And that was really quite a fun and nice learning experience. And like I said, I moved out to Singapore from the United States about 2 years ago. And I really, my entire professional life, for the most part, was all in New York City. And it's a place I hold near and dear to my heart. But I moved to Southeast Asia because I felt in some way that my view of the world was just too limited. And that as a kind of curious mind and a designer who really wants to apply what I learn and the time I have on the planet, really, to creating as much positive impact as I could. It felt like understanding the world more, seeing more of the world, interacting with more cultures and different people, needs and dreams and challenges would be an important contributor to maybe pursuing that mission of just trying to create a positive impact. And of course, for any of you who may have moved between, cities, towns, countries, continents, right? There's always some cultural change, and some norms you don't understand, and many, in fact. And one thing that was really important to me, and I share this with you all as I frame what I'm about to tell you, because my presentation is a really particular person's story from a particular point of view. You might say, gosh, maybe it's interesting, I can learn about Randy, but what does it have to do with me? Or how can I apply that, in my life or my design practice? And a really interesting thing happened for me when I moved out here, where I brought all my assumptions with me about what I didn't know, basically. And I thought, gosh, all these 8 countries, we serve customers in 8 different countries: Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, several others. It's like every country is going to be different, which is true, of course. Bunch of different cultural differences. The politics are different in each place. How developed the economies are different. And I kind of had drawn these, borders in my mind, which are, the political borders of nation states. And I thought that's how I was going to learn about things. And what I learned really quickly through really our research team and a number of immersions they do to help, myself and other business leaders understand the business and understand the market, was that while all those things are true that I just described, the politics, the geography, the landscape, the culture, the language differs and is important to consider, that across the places where we were working, there was actually more similarity between, let's say, a tier 1 city. So let's say like Jakarta in Indonesia and Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, from a sort of a business standpoint and a customer needs standpoint, than there was between, say, Jakarta in Indonesia and then Bali in Indonesia. And this was a really important insight for me that suddenly cut across geographies and cultures. And so I was swimming around with this idea. I was like, okay, for the kinds of products and services we're creating, which have to do with transportation, food delivery, groceries, digital payments, while cultural considerations are important, really where a place sits in relationship to maybe its economic development in that country has a far greater impact on the kinds of needs and challenges that the customers face and that our users face than the fact that in this place it's a majority Muslim country, right? Or this place has kind of been, a monarchy for hundreds of years. These, while important, not nearly as important in the day-to-day lives of people for the kinds of things that we are designing and creating. I found this kind of mind-blowing, but also really exciting, because it meant then that my learnings weren't limited to inside the borders of these places or the customers we were immediately serving. And so I started to look more broadly. I made some friends in Bangalore in India, and they helped me understand this as well. They had a similar experience. They were designing some healthcare products, and they were finding that their experience, kind of designing for like Lagos and Jakarta, were more similar than different. But their challenges of maybe designing for 3rd-tier cities in India were actually much more challenging, because a different set of circumstances. So I share that with you because I'm going to tell you about my story, or a particular point of view from me that relates a bit to Southeast Asia and a bit to my view on design. And while it does come from a different context, different cultures are so important, there's also many things that bring us together, many shared interests, shared aspirations, shared qualities in the human spirit. And so I hope you find it, fun, interesting, exciting, relevant. And so I'll I'll just dive right in, and here we go. It's going to be a little bit of a mystery land for me, I think. Now, once I share the screen, I won't see as much information about the, the conference. So if someone needs to interrupt me or something, please do. Okay, can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Maybe from one of the organizers. I think we're good. Great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I love how informal this is. It's great. We're all just calling from our bedrooms. All right. Well, like I said, hello and thank you. Really, really pleased to be here. I'm Randy J. on mostly Twitter, sometimes Instagram, even more rarely Clubhouse, Dispo. This is me everywhere. So if you want to connect or ask me any questions, follow up, or just kind of keep track of things that's happening in our part of the world, feel free to follow me there. So back in, from about 2007 to 2010, I co-founded this business with two other people called Supermarket, which I think Pradyumna mentioned in the introduction. And, this business, it was a two-sided e-commerce marketplace, meaning, we basically sourced products from a bunch of designers, but we didn't hold their inventory or buy them or anything like that. We just made them available, essentially a digital storefront, which while eBay had been around for years or something like that, was a somewhat novel concept still in 2007. Then we attracted shoppers to this marketplace, right? So this became a kind of curation exercise and finding products and marketing exercise and bringing shoppers interested in these products. And, this experience for me was just a little, little screenshot of what things looked like back then. It's funny, I don't know if these things have aged so well or not. I think I still like it, but styles change and qualities change. But what is important about Supermarket in this story for me is that prior to Supermarket, I'd always done client service design work. I'd worked in design studios. I started and run a design studio myself. And that was something I'd always wanted to do. I liked that entrepreneurial spirit. I liked running a business. And Supermarket was the first time where the business was the product, right? It wasn't a service we were providing, but we were, we basically built a website, or really the e-commerce system from scratch, which was a great learning experience for me. Like I mentioned, we sourced all the product inventory, we did the marketing, but for me as a designer, we designed the experience online, we designed the identity, we were doing pop-up shops inside stores, and a whole variety of things. And this was the first time that I'd really been able to design everything the way I always wished I could when I was doing client service design, or when I was running a studio. Right? The dream was always, someone would come in with a project for a website. You'd be excited to get the work. We were a small business, just had a few employees, and I was thankful for any work that came in. But I always had this moment where gosh, it sure would be great if we could, design their identity too. This website would be so much better if we could, improve other parts of their business, other parts of their design. And sometimes you'd successfully get someone to pay you a little more money to, do some more of that work. But very often these were small to medium-sized projects. They never got at the whole thing. And I was just always aspiring to do the whole thing. And so for me, Supermarket, in addition to being a business that was reasonably successful and taught me a lot of other interesting things about building a product company instead of offering client service, where it really touched my heart, I guess, the most is that I could finally design every touch point and had total control over that. You know, no one else needed to approve it. I could write the words the way I thought they needed to be written and could get this vision out into the world. That was a really exciting moment. And what it did for me is it led me to, among a number of other things, it led me to Etsy, which, Etsy is another e-commerce platform. You may or may not be familiar with it, but it's grown quite successful over time. It was originally rooted in sort of handmade goods, like craft products, but a similar idea of matching buyers and sellers in this online marketplace. I joined Etsy based on a bunch of, I think experience and credibility I had, which is great. But the important thing about Etsy in this journey or story for me was maybe three things, right? One was more of this total design, this pursuit of being able to kind of influence and touch all of the things. That was really afforded by the fact that the founder of the company had brought me in and trusted me enough to let me do what I thought needed to be done. What that meant over time was really building a team that could cover many different functions and capabilities. We were doing the software product design, we were doing the design of the brand, the communications and marketing materials, all the art direction and creative direction for advertising, things like that. And then, the thing that really probably opened my mind the most at Etsy was research. Yeah, and so for the first time really in my professional life, I got really close to deeper customer research. Again, originally not out of some great insight that we should do that, but actually out of a problem, which is we were really good at using hard data, essentially in the software product, to understand the experience and how people were using it. Clickstream data and time on site and conversion rates and all these like business metrics that are very important. And I kind of got enamored with this, and probably after 2 years realized that we knew so much about what was happening kind of on our website and very little about what was happening in the customer's minds anytime else in their days or lives, which started to look like a real weakness. And so went on a real learning journey that resulted in building a research team, a research practice that would do things like what's illustrated here in this photo. Go on the ground and research with customers directly. Spend time with them, observing how they do what they do, how our products or services fit into their life. What you're seeing in this photo is actually a woman who is a jewelry maker. And as she would get orders on the Etsy platform, she would print out each order. That's what you're seeing, the pieces of paper on this board. She would kind of fold them in half. And these became almost like her job tracker. So if you think of maybe, your Trello board or a Jira board or something like this, like a Kanban board or any of these like software methods, she basically had a lane, a vertical column that represented what stage of the process something was in. And as she would complete orders, she would take these folded pieces of paper and move them, from the left to the right to indicate what stage they were at. And this was so, she had a couple of people who would help her make the jewelry or help her fulfill orders. And so if you're someone who fulfills orders, you can go and look at the column, just those orders that are, in the to be filled column. I love this kind of learning because it, one, you just understand where your product and service is working or not for someone. Like this is pretty ingenious, very innovative. Also, my immediate thought is, well, can't we just do that with the software? What if the tool can make it easier for you to do this so you don't have to print these things out and move them around? But another really important learning here is we actually took some of those insights and said, hey, let's try to build software that does exactly this. What if we could help sellers not only manage their sales, but also how they process their orders and maybe even the making of their products in the background? And so we prototyped some things, and thankfully we had a pretty mature system that allowed us to allow designers to prototype very easily. This is much easier these days thanks to great tools like Protopie, and Figma, and other things. It was more difficult back then, but we kind of had a home-built solution that allowed us to do it pretty easily. So with just a couple weeks investment, we were able to kind of prototype out an experience like this. We were very proud of ourselves because we learned how to do this from research, you know. And what we learned was that when we put this in front of other customers, they were all confused. We went from this great learning insight that was so kind of big. Oh, amazing, we're gonna do this thing. Our customer's so clever, let's repeat what they did and make it available to everyone. And we put it in front of other customers and it didn't make any sense to them. And a key learning was that the way one person kind of has a mental model, right, or a picture of how something should work, how they organize their ideas in their life, is not the same as everyone else. And so while this particular seller had a very successful and a very successful system that worked well for them and how they think in their circumstances, trying to abstract that into something that worked for many more people didn't necessarily work out in this case. So really, really important learning. The other great takeaway was that those investments we made in making it easy to create prototypes and then putting them in front of customers to test them were really, really worthwhile, because we were able to learn that our idea probably wasn't going to work before we spent way too much time or energy or money trying to figure it out. And that was, I think, a key learning for our team at the time. You know, that this idea you have about how maybe investing in tools and infrastructure and process and prototypes makes things easier or better. And I think if you read enough Medium articles, you'll convince yourself that's true. But it was really important to put that to the test and actually experience it ourselves firsthand and say, yeah, that is worth it. This does validate the way we're working. I wish I could continue working this way more. So really, really important kind of learning or experience at Etsy. The other important thing for me was really just the rapid growth inside this organization. So while the previous businesses I'd started, were anywhere from kind of, my record label was essentially a failure. We made about as much money as we spent. So, it didn't set me up for a good livelihood in the future, but it was a really fun business to run. The other businesses I've run were all pretty modest in size. While they were successful from a business standpoint, we're talking teams of 4, 5, 6, 7 people. I joined Etsy when it was 50 people, like 50. And when I left Etsy, it was about 1,200 people. And I was there for about 7.5 years, but most of that growth was probably in the first 2 to 3 years. Really, really rapid growth, which I'm sure probably some of you attending this conference are in some kind of organization experiencing that now, or hoping to start something that feels like that, or your friends or family are participating in something like that. And it's wow, it is just wild. It's really fun and exciting, and it's also just crazy. And that's I think just experiencing that firsthand and figuring out how to deal with it as you kind of fumble through things. As a designer, especially someone who's interested in trying to make sure all of the designed things are good, it's kind of my maybe my curse in a way, is that I'm always trying to pursue that. When you have so much going on, when the organization is big to begin with and is growing very quickly, meaning you're adding new people all the time with new skill sets, new opinions, new points of view, different levels of experience. What you need to do to try to create a whole design experience for your customer or your user or your brand changes very radically. It goes from having an idea as almost like the creative visionary or something, and really directly executing that, or working with a small team of people to execute it, much more to vision setting, goal setting, training, learning, development, feedback loops, like all of the things that you may need to help take a big body of work and make it both very good and very consistent. And for me, that was both extremely challenging and also extremely rewarding. and it informed my view even more deeply. I took a little, I would say, a sidestep. These are all related. Basically, I've been working with marketplaces now for like 12, 13, 14 years. But I joined a marketplace called Artsy, unrelated to Etsy, although they certainly have a similar name, and both were in New York City. I spent time at Artsy for about 2 years, and Artsy is this online marketplace for contemporary art, and kind of, you know, blue chip, high-end gallery, mostly expensive contemporary art. What was actually really interesting to me about this experience and why I joined this organization had to do with a couple of things. One design-related one, and one kind of more business-related one, or almost like economic-related one. The design one was, you know, as I worked on Supermarket and Etsy, I'm interested in this holistic design experience, but at the same time was so intrigued by the idea that the main content, what everyone's going there to see, you know, essentially the photos of the products, right? To learn and read about those products really needed to take center stage. And so all the rest of the design somehow needs to play a supporting role and recede while still having a personality, some kind of brand. And I felt like those same problems in the art world were even more extreme, right? Because there's just a sense of like preciousness and, you know, sensitivity around the idea of art, particularly art viewed through this lens. And to me, that was such an interesting problem. It's almost like, how little can it feel like there's design, you know? How little can you add while still making it all work? Both from a sort of a brand and presentation standpoint, but also from a functional standpoint. When we think about the software product, you know, you still need to guide people's eyes to the right call to action. The interactions need to give you appropriate feedback to let you know, that your interaction with them has been successful. Certain UI components need to suggest what the behaviors might be when you interact with them, so that you, as a user, have a sense of what's going on. And yet at the same time, it needed to be almost as little design as possible. I thought this was such an interesting and intriguing problem. The other was in the spirit of kind of these marketplaces I've been working on. I was just so interested in what were the underlying mechanics of the art market, because it's a pretty mysterious market in many cases, where the buyers and the creators are very different than, let's say, in Etsy, where this really feels more like a peer-to-peer relationship. In the art market, there's a lot of exclusivity and hierarchy, interesting, strange things that I was very curious to learn more about. Really fun experience. I feel like I should, write an article or something just about this experience sometimes, because it's actually really, much shorter than some other experiences, really fun and meaningful one for me. Also just learned a lot more about artists that I wasn't aware of before, or hadn't given as much attention to. So today I'm working at this organization called Grab, which is, Pradyumna mentioned, is a super app in Southeast Asia. Okay? So if you're to go on the streets in Hanoi, in Vietnam, or Serangoon, or Bangkok, or here in Singapore we are, you will see something that looks like this. This particular image is, I think, from Ho Chi Minh City. Everywhere. I just watched a documentary film a couple weeks ago that was shot throughout Southeast Asia about the North Korean regime. Actually, it's an interesting documentary film. And I'm watching all the B-roll and footage. This was shot within the last couple of years, and you just see Grab show up everywhere. You see bikes zooming by and logos in shop windows, and it's just very, very present. And this lines up with what we aspire to do as a super app, which is the way we describe it as your everyday everything app, right? The super is really we're bringing together all of these different products and services and functions into one consumer experience. So today that's rides. So ride hailing and point-to-point travel, both in automobiles and on motorbikes. Food delivery, grocery delivery, kind of quick commerce, like we might call like a mart or something here in the region, for sort of daily essentials and things like that. We have a dominant digital wallet. People are, peer-to-peer transferring money, making, of course, payments through our services, payments in person at retail merchants, payments online, and a number of other things in the ecosystem that have grown over time. We now offer a number of financial services, investing, saving, lending, insurance, and just recently received the first digibank license issued by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So now we're on a fast timeline to launch a bank in about 18 months. So this is wild, right? This is a wild, wild experience with many, many things coming together. But it relates to these other stories I've just told you in a few important ways for me. And I think might give you a sense of how I think about design and applying design, like in a broader sense. So one, still a marketplace. In fact, it's a way bigger and more diverse marketplace with many different players, right? We have all of our delivery partners and the people helping move people and products from point A to B. And they create a whole marketplace dynamic around what, how much can be moved when, at what speed. Then we have all our customers, like you or I would be, right? You might order some food or order their groceries or need to take a ride somewhere. And then we have all of these merchants. We have restaurants and stores and food and beverage merchants. Then we also, we operate at such a large scale. We're essentially the largest provider of every one of these services in the 8 countries that we operate in. That governments and local institutions become customers. We have enterprise customers that use us, as their primary, transportation method for their team. So this very, very diverse set of players in the marketplace, which I find really interesting from a design standpoint. What can we create that is sort of universal that applies to all those customers, and what can we do that is, or what must we do that is really unique, to the particular customer type, to the particular place, to the particular service. And this comes back to the idea of really trying to design everything, right? What does it take to design this whole experience, online, offline, for many different customers, many cultures, places, languages they speak. And so for us today, gosh, it's quite complex. The design organization inside our company is about 140 people today. And my role as a designer is really to ensure that those people are able to do what they need to do to best serve the customer, and that my other partners in the business understand what that is, and that we give them sort of the time, resources, space, and guidance to do so. There would be no other path forward to design this number of products, services, businesses for this variety of customers across these markets without taking an approach that looks more like managing relationships, setting expectations, setting vision. Yeah. So today my design looks a lot like writing and reading Google Docs and using the product constantly and providing feedback on where I think it can be better, and working with our business partners to use sort of design thinking methods, as well as creating design artifacts like the prototypes we talked about earlier in different parts of research to help us drive forward our thinking about the future and validate that the ideas we're having might resonate with our customers. So, I have this affliction maybe when I'm trying to design so many things, which is I really want them to all be perfect, and I wonder how many of you might consider yourselves perfectionists. I'm gonna stop my screen share for just a second. I think, let's see. Yeah. just talk to you here for a minute. So, you know, I have this problem, this challenge where it's, you know, I'm just never satisfied. And of course, I'm never satisfied with a smile on my face, and, you know, and always find the good things in what we've done. But it always feels to me like it can be more, it can be better, and it can be more complete. Yeah. When I was a child, I was really obsessed with basketball, and the team, you know, the Orlando Magic in the NBA was like my hometown team. And it didn't exist, and then they had started this team like when I was a child. So this was really exciting to me that there was like this new professional sports team, and I was obsessed with them. And my pursuit of completeness, even then, is that, you know, the team colors were black, white, and blue, and I took the furniture in my bedroom, much to my mother's disappointment, and bought black paint, you know, and came home and painted all the furniture black. Painted the walls. Like I wanted everything to be Orlando Magic, and I wanted it all to be coordinated and complete and total. And I kind of wasn't satisfied until everything fit in. And I think that pursuit still kind of drives me and haunts me today. And so I was thinking a lot about, you know, this idea, how it relates to kind of these stories I've told you about, these different experiences I've had in my professional life, the lessons learned, but also this ongoing pursuit of how do we kind of design for all of the needs and create all the things. And so I've come up with a few things that I think help describe what kind of is a total and complete design. And so I'm going to share those with you now. And let's see, let me share my screen back again. Okay, so what is this total design? Yeah, so I think for me, this idea of total design is this design practice of intentionally creating responses by addressing and considering every variable of every touch point of an experience. So when I say intentionally, I mean we go out of our way to think about what are all the things we can do. We can create, change, remove, improve in whatever the project we're considering. What are all of those variables? We proactively consider them and what we might do with them or about them in order to create the kinds of responses we want from the people and customers we're working with. That may be about them reading and understanding a message. It may be about them perceiving your brand a particular way. It may be about creating a reason for them to tell someone else about the product or service. To generate word of mouth marketing. It may be about just building an idea of what you stand for so that later, sometime in the future, they think of your brand for that purpose. Okay? And so these can be really big ideas, you know, as big as events, as big as, you know, the brand sort of vision and mission and its purpose. And it can be as small as the handwritten welcome note you give to a new employee on their first day. Yeah, these are all these little touch points, and how can we kind of consider every one of them to help us create this total design? So here's what I think these attributes of this total design are. I've kind of assembled from this past set of experience of building marketplaces and working across several brands. And one is that they're coherent. And what I mean is that they form some kind of unified whole. And we often think of this as a best practice, you know, maybe said simply that everything kind of goes together. But this is actually really difficult to pull off. And it's especially difficult to pull off at scale, like I mentioned, you know. For an organization like Grab, many products, many services, many people creating those things, and all of it kind of developing and moving and changing all the time. So pretty, as they say, like a wicked problem, like a very complex problem to deal with. So while it seems simple to say, hey, make everything go together, it's actually pretty hard. I think that, I'm showing you an older version of some of the Google icons. These have recently been redesigned within the last several months. But to me, I actually think that Google has done a surprisingly good job of going from a massive suite of products and a brand that we knew by sort of name and appearance, but wasn't necessarily appealing if we were Ryan maybe 10 years ago, and creating a really coherent design across those things. Now there's many weak points in it for sure still, and things that aren't coherent, but I think that for the size and complexity of the organization and the number of products they've put out in the world, they've done a remarkably good job at this compared to many, many other things. And I find it pretty impressive. And of course, they've done this at like kind of system level thinking, things like material design as like a design language that they've then made available to the world, so that one, it sort of self-improves the way that kind of open source software does as people contribute to it, but also so that anyone designing for their platforms has kind of the starting point to be part of that coherent experience. The other, I think, is that for something to feel total and complete, it needs to have these defined edges, meaning you need to know where it starts or stops, right? Like here's my Zoom screen. And within this box, I can create a total experience. And that's already really hard. So I need to know where those edges are, because if I try to step outside it and do all the things out here too, they may also be hard and I may enjoy doing them, but they don't benefit you as the audience because your view is here, right? And so when we're thinking about trying to create this whole experience, I feel like we have to decide where the boundaries are so we can focus our energy. And I learned this from experience, having not done that at points in the past and just become, I think, completely exhausted, but also derailed by just trying to do too much stuff. Yeah. So choosing the things that matter because they're the things that are most directly sort of visible, available, and present for the audience or customers you're designing for. I think that in the US and in Europe, I'm not sure if what other markets they're in. They're not really here in Southeast Asia, but there's a product, a brand called Square. It's been around for years, actually. It's a kind of payments product and digital wallet that started really in small cafes and retail. And they've done such a good job of containing what parts of the experience they're serving. They have very clear defined edges around this payments experience and which parts of it they do and don't do. And it's allowed them to do an extremely complete job within those boundaries. The user experience is exceptional. The hardware experience is exceptional. The integration between the two is great. They do a very, very, very good job. And in fact, in a smart strategic choice, as they expanded to offer some other things, they really create a different brand that shows up as an entirely different business and product, so as to not kind of complicate this very clear and complete experience they've created with the primary Square product. I think another key attribute, at least from my point of view, when we think about doing these total design experiences, is that it's distinct. And what I mean is it's unique and recognizable as different from other things. This certainly has a brand component to it. But I also, I think that I believe it's very important that something is total and complete. We need to be able to see what it is. We need to be able to recognize that it exists. And so I think that something like, Tesla is an interesting version. You could also say Tesla is a great system with different bounds, and it fits several of these definitions. But what I think is so interesting about it is how distinct and recognizable the products are, the way that the brand and marketing kind of show up in the world, even the reputation of course, the founder, CEO, like makes the design not only very like complete and holistic, but recognizable in being so. It's like it does a good job of getting credit for how good it is. And I think if we're going to spend all this time trying to make complete, total design experiences, well, then we should get credit for it too. The fourth attribute, don't worry, there's only 5, so one more after this, is that it persists. And I put an asterisk here. And what I mean by it persists is that that the design considers time, and that it exists within time as much as it needs to, right? Because our designs aren't just a static thing. It's not just the screens on the phone or the marketing or the branding or the logo or something. They're often a long set of experiences and touch points that a customer or user has with us over a long period of time. And so the experience you're trying to create needs to exist throughout all that time if it's going to have the intended effect that you want it to have. This is why I think, frequent kind of rebranding is not a great exercise in general, because brands take so long to build equity and credibility that helping it persist, stay alive, and exist in the world over a long period of time is as important as what it looks like. Both are important. I'm not saying it's more important than what it looks like. But the durability, consistency, the regular exposure to it from a customer is so important. And in fact, since I've been at Grab, we redesigned our logo. But if I were to put the old one and the new one next to each other for any average person, they wouldn't notice the difference. And that was intentional. Because the idea they have in their mind of what we look like should be the same, I believe. Yeah. And we're looking to make it persist and be durable over time. So then why did we change it? There's some technical considerations, and integrate it much better in our design system, derive another typeface from it, lots of it's kind of functional and practical things. But the idea of the brand and how it sort of shows up remains the same. I put the asterisk here because some things that you're trying to create an experience out of may not need to last for a long time. So I say it persists as long as it needs to, right? Some things really are a quick moment, right? And that's part of the design. They come and they go really quickly. They're this intervention. The image here on the screen is from, Burning Man, the big kind of like cultural festival that happens, in the desert in the US once a year, where people gather. I don't go into the details of the events. Some of you are probably aware of it, but what's important about it in the context of it persisting is that Burning Man comes together all in this intentional moment of time. It's sort of like 1 week, maybe 7 days or 10 days. And then by design, it ceases to exist. It goes away. Everything comes for a moment, intense, total, all-consuming experience, and then it disappears. And in fact, they leave they have a kind of like leave no trace policy. So at the end of Burning Man, the whole exercise is everyone, ensuring they've picked up any garbage or artifacts so that nothing is left behind, so that they can leave the desert as they found it. And finally, I think that for something to be totally sort of complete and whole, and to resonate with people in their kind of hearts and minds as completely as I would aspire for them to, they need to be authentic, meaning the key characteristics of them can't be fabricated or just sort of invented. Yeah? They need to really come from a genuine place from the people who are creating it and who are responsible for maintaining it over time. That the the design you create for your business or for your company needs to be intimately connected with the the leaders of that organization, the vision and mission of that organization, and be about enhancing its best attributes or communicating what's great about it, not trying to make you think it is something other than it is. This example I show here is just Solange, the musician, artist, poet, dancer, really. I just think she's one of the most original artists, at least come out of the States, in the last several years. Such beautiful performances, amazing songs, but very complete and total sort of artistic vision across all of these things, from the stage design and production to the costume design, the lighting, the album artwork, the interactive experiences. If you go to her website, just a very, very complete and total design in the universe of Solange, which I just find absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So hey, we're coming up towards just the last couple minutes in the session here, and just want to leave you with a few other thoughts as I kind of wrap up. So, this pursuit of kind of creating these whole and complete designs, includes these 5 attributes I share with you: that it's coherent, that it has these defined edges, that it is distinct and recognizable, that it persists over time, or it exists in time as part of the design idea, and that it comes from a very authentic and genuine place, for the brand, the business, the creators who are behind it. But one thing I, reflected on after taking this point of view for a long time, and I still hold this and kind of build these principles, is that actually leaving space in the complete design for your customers, your partners, your users to contribute to that completeness, to be a part of the experience themselves, is perhaps one of the strongest and most compelling ways or things to consider that draw people into your experience. Yeah. And so I think the younger version of myself pursued completeness as some kind of creative vision that we could send out into the world. And I think over time, what I've come to see is that actually the idea of pursuing completeness as something that we can participate in together with our teams or our colleagues or our customers is really even better and more valuable and more impactful. So hey, I just wanted to say thank you again to the World Class Design Conference School organizers. Such a cool event. You've got such awesome stuff coming up ahead of you. I hope that what I was able to share with you was exciting or revealing or educational in some way. I just feel like it's such a privilege to be able to share this time with you, and just wish you a great time for the rest of the event. So thank you so much.
Hey, Randy, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you here with us. And thank you for such inspiring talk.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next call.